online IT career fair. And I think we can start now. Yeah, sorry for a little technical pause.
Can people hear me?
Yes, I guess we do.
Okay. Is there any way I could show slides, or I suppose I could distribute them later if people...
Demonstration.
You can. No, you can show.
I can? Just hit screen. Let's see here. Window. Okay. Yeah, let me... Hey, can people hear me still?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you see my screen? You see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me try that again. Okay, so I am sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Hey. Okay, so let me go ahead and start since we got a little bit of a late start here. Well, first off, let me thank everyone for joining up today. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about pursuing a degree in computer science, and specifically a graduate degree, because I think most of the people in the audience are already pursuing an undergraduate degree in computer science. And because this is a bit of a job fair, people are looking forward to what they're going to be doing in the next couple of years in terms of deciding what to do after you graduate. So first off, I think most people know, most computer scientists especially know, or people studying to be computer scientists, that being a computer scientist, there's a lot of job opportunities. The pay is generally good. The idea is that there is going to be a lot of expansion in the job market over, well, I'd say the next few years, but they're saying like over the next 20, 30, 40 years, et cetera, that actually becoming a computer scientist or something associated with computers is generally going to be a good choice, and that you should have a lot of job opportunities and stability in the market. Because as we go forward, and the different technologies that are being developed and that are being used and incorporated in many different areas, and not just things relating to computing per se, but even just businesses are of course connected using computers and using these technologies. So the fact is that this is generally a good choice. Though I always, when I give talks like this, I remind students that don't make this, however, the only reason why you want to study computer science or major in computer science. Because if you don't like computer science, or you don't like things like programming or solving problems, then you're not going to have a whole lot of fun for the next 40, 50, 60 years of your life. So when choosing something to do, just be aware that this is something that you're going to be working on for an extended period of time. But I guess most of you have already made this decision to study in computer science. And so being this is a job fair, you should probably mention what sorts of things you might expect after graduation, what opportunities are out there. Here in Kazakhstan, I know a lot of you have heard of Digital Kazakhstan, big push by the government to help kind of digitalize government, e-government, and also to kind of bring industry into kind of the digital age. And we've already seen a lot of improvements. And actually, if you look at the statistics and just external people kind of doing an assessment of the changes that have taken place in Kazakhstan, it is being noticed that there is actual real improvement that Kazakhstan is seeing as a bit on. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying that they're on the leading edge, but they are. It's very, very noticeable to the level of which e-government and other digitalization initiatives are going forward, and it's really helping things out. And there's lots of opportunities for you. Also, there's sort of, you can go work for software companies. There's the big software companies like Google and Microsoft, et cetera, but there's also smaller software companies, and you don't necessarily have to go to these big international companies. There's plenty of good opportunities locally as well. Also, if you're interested in things like intelligent systems, there's many different places where you could go. Here's some of the probably the more well-known international outfits, but there's also a lot of people who are working on intelligence systems and looking at analyzing things like data to provide better user experience or to provide better kind of customer interaction as well. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be one of these big tech companies that you have to go work for. Also, there's more traditional kind of technology type companies like Siemens, Oracle, SAP. I know that SAP does have a noticeable presence here in Kazakhstan. But again, it just depends on what you're interested in. And of course, there's also the entrepreneurship route. A lot of students we've seen are interested in creating their own business. They have some ideas that they want to see if they can market it, to see what's to just kind of try their hand at going into business. And we do have some success stories. So there's a lot of opportunities here, in particular in Kazakhstan, because a lot of what you'll see here is maybe not quite as developed in terms of companies and apps and things that you would see in other places like, say, the US. I think there's a lot more opportunity here than, say, many other places. But of course, today I'm not here to talk about these in particular, but more about this opportunity of going on to graduate school. And part of the reason why I bring up these other options for you is that actually graduate school gives you value added. In particular, if you go on and even if you just get a master's degree, what you're doing is you are improving your knowledge and your experience, which will help you get a job in some of these other areas, and should also, well, you may be able to get a better position as well. So in a sense, the idea is that if you go on to graduate school, in particular, if you go on and get a master's degree, what you're doing is you're essentially just putting in 2 more years to extend what you've learned in your bachelor's, which should make you more marketable if you decide to go into industry or government, or even go off and try to start your own company as an entrepreneur. So in particular, I'm going to start off talking about a master's degree and why this is a good idea. Understand that a bachelor's program in computer science, we're somewhat limited in terms of what we can cover in 4 years. I would say computer science is actually a very, very broad field. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, in 30, 40, 50 years, CS will be subdivided into several other fairly distinct fields. But really, to get a decent coverage of the topics in CS in a CS education, we have to kind of briefly touch on many of these key ideas, these main ideas, but we really can't spend too much time on any one thing. So in a way, I would say getting a bachelor's degree in computer science is more of giving you a lay of the land. You get an idea of what's out there. You get some experience with a few of these different areas, but you're probably not going to be having a large degree of mastery of any one of these areas just because of time constraints. However, part of a CS bachelor's program, we try to also teach you how to be a problem solver, how to continue learning. This is the reason why you take so many math classes. This is why we really push on things like algorithms classes or learning different programming languages. Because later on, when technologies change or new technologies are developed, we want you to have the mental agility to go on and to learn new things, because that's one thing about being a computer scientist. When you sign on to this, you're going to be learning continuously. And so we try to help you with that in the bachelor's program. Now, for a master's program, however, I generally see that as a way for you to extend what you've learned in the bachelor's program and actually go deeper into an area that is of specific interest to you. So for those of you who have looked at our particular master's program or also other master's programs in computer science elsewhere, you may notice that there are some fairly basic core classes that you have to take, but most programs are fairly flexible in terms of the different areas and things that you can investigate. So again, this is one thing in computer science too, that if you go on to graduate school and study a master's degree in, say, other disciplines, it's not necessarily going to help you a lot more getting kind of a regular job in that area. Many master's programs are very focused and focused on something research related, so that it's a lot of people, for example, if say you're going to be an electrical engineer or mechanical engineer or something like that, oftentimes there's not a whole lot of interest in having these students go on to get a master's degree. It's better to go out and just get a job right away. Whereas, and a lot of companies are afraid to hire people in some disciplines who have master's degree because they're afraid that, well, they're just going to be asking for more money necessarily, and they're not really going to learn more that's going to help for their particular jobs that they'll be doing for you. But I wouldn't say computer science is unique in this, but I think it is a feature of master's degree in computer science that you can almost see it as a kind of just an extension of your undergraduate education. And employers know this, or most employers should know this, and they actually do find this attractive because they're getting somebody who is a bit more knowledgeable. And hopefully not more knowledgeable in the particular area of their interest. Okay. So now note that I didn't say anything about pursuing a PhD. And the reason why is in part because at Nazarbayev University, we kind of follow the European system where you can't pursue a PhD unless you have a master's in hand. So in a sense, if you actually are interested in doing a PhD or doing continued research, then the first step would be to get a master's degree anyway. However, there is an exception to this. North American universities actually prefer that you apply directly to a PhD program and just go around the master's program. Generally, those programs really, you learn a lot of the same stuff in the master's program, but they don't want to spend the additional time and paperwork, so to speak. They want you to really just kind of commit to the program, because that's where a lot of their research funding, the research funding that they get, they want PhD students to be contributing to this. And the concern for them is that master's students are only there for the short term and won't be able to contribute, so they're not nearly as willing to financially support such students. So keep that in mind. Okay. Since this is a career fair, and I think most of the people giving talks are really trying to kind of sell you on what they're providing, I'm going to talk a bit about the computer science and data science programs at NU, and particularly the master's programs. So why would you particularly want to go to one of these into the programs here? I would say Well, first off, as with the undergraduate programs, there is financial support provided to students coming in. You're not necessarily guaranteed that if you go elsewhere, although I would say most graduate programs you go to, if they really want you, they'll find a way to support you to a certain degree financially. Also, if say you've done research as a bachelor's student here, or you've been working with particular faculty members that you're comfortable with, just staying here and getting your master's and continuing to work with that person or persons isn't a bad idea. So you can kind of keep working on what you've been doing, or if you're not interested in the same things, if you want to try something new, that's perfectly okay too. Another thing that I do want to mention here also with our graduate programs at NU is that you will get more personalized attention, and that we want to see each individual student succeed. And I'm saying this in contrast to many other graduate programs that you may find elsewhere internationally, because there are some programs that are set up where they make more offers than they intend to have students left after a few years. It's very much a survival of the fittest in many of these programs. The idea is that the expectation is we'll bring in 20 people with the expectation that we'll just wash 10 of them out. That really what some of these professors want are just to let all the graduate students loose in the lab or on their research, and the 10 best ones who are producing research right away or publishing papers right away get to stay. The other ones get shown the door. So we don't take that approach here at NU. So we will give you personalized attention. We'll work with you. We'll help you succeed in what you're doing. But of course, you have to put in the effort. Yes, you have to do the research. Yes. But at the same time, our intention is not to kind of let you into the program with the expectation that some of you are just going to fall by the wayside. Okay. So for those of you who are probably getting close to graduation or are looking at applying to NU, I think most of you probably know what the minimum requirements are. Of course, you need a bachelor's in computer science or related. You need to have English proficiency, but you automatically get counted for the English proficiency if you get your degree from NU, so you don't have to take IELTS. According to the rules, you have to have a GPA of 2.75 or higher, although usually we really want to see 3.0 or above. It's great if you have something between a 3.0 or a 3.5. Anything higher than that, that's especially good. But at the same time, if say you have like a 3.5 grade point, that's fine for us. So if you have like a 3.3, 3.4, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Of course, you also have to have recommendation letters and a statement of purpose as part of your package. But again, for those NU students who are looking to go to the master's program, the main thing you can do is to really just do well in all your classes. Also, it doesn't hurt to start doing some research or working on projects with individual faculty members. Although it isn't necessary, it is helpful if we know that you are capable of independent thinking and doing a certain amount of work without getting a lot of hovering oversight from others. It is good to have a certain degree of independence there. Also, another thing that I want to mention is if you are selected for further consideration, we will interview you. And I ask that you please prepare for this. We have had students, in particular NU students, who for the interview, it appears that they have just gotten out of bed. And it's like that when we start asking them questions. We will ask you technical questions. So I would recommend that you review things from data structures and algorithms in particular. If you're applying to the CS program or for the data science program, you may want to review things that you've learned in, say, like a deep learning or a data analytics courses. But you should at least refresh yourself briefly before the interview, so we see that you actually care and are really interested in the graduate program here. Okay, here's just areas of the expertise of the CS department. I think most of you probably know this who've already been here, but we do have several groups who are working in, or several people working in intelligent systems. We have a few people working in things like bioinformatics and also like brain-computer interface work. We have a few people who are concerned with information security, cybersecurity, and forensics. And also, we do have several people, including myself to a certain extent, who are working in things like theory, formal methods, and modeling. So if you're interested in how programming languages work or developing new algorithms to solve some of these traditional CS problems, then we have faculty who can work with you on that. Okay. Yeah, here's just a few of the places where our faculty have gotten advanced degrees. Yeah, but again, I think most of you probably know this if you've just glanced over our faculty pages. I don't want to go into too much more detail here. I want to keep things open so people can ask questions later, but I know sometimes people ask what's really the difference between our master's program in computer science and our master's in data science, because often it's the case they'll be taking a lot of the same classes, and so they wonder really what's the difference. And the answer is, well, it's as different as you want to make it, but it is possible for a student, say, studying one or the other, to take a lot of elective courses in such a way as to have their program have a certain flavor. So, for instance, we do have a lot of computer science students who will take things like data mining and big data analytics, etc., so that they'll get sort of a certain data science flavor to their degree. But also the data science people, they're also able to take technical electives as well. So if they're interested in things that may not be particular to data science, maybe even if they're interested in things like theory or programming, they can certainly take courses and fill elective slots with that. So if you're looking at this particular slide here, one way to look at it is that the reds here are the things in, well, I guess pink. These are things that are specifically required of that degree program that is unlikely to be taken by people in the other program. Whereas the dark greens, these are the research track. Everybody, actually, they take the exact same courses, and this is really getting you on track to do your thesis at the end. The light green, these are technical electives. Both programs require that you take 5 technical electives along the way. Now, the blue items here, these are kind of the interesting ones where these are specific to the program, but they could also fill an elective slot over in the other programs. So for instance, a computer scientist could take process or project management or data mining or big data to fill this technical elective slot here. Okay, so you do have a lot of flexibility. Also, I should mention that given the new graduate framework that all departments are supposed to be implementing, we're also fairly flexible in terms of the technical electives that you take. So if you wanted to take, say, a technical elective in, say, electrical engineering or robotics, or even something like biology, it's highly likely we would accept that. So we do want to encourage multidisciplinary study. And so if you're wanting to take something in some other department, ask us first, but chances are we'll let you do it. Okay. And finally, for those students who do want to go on to graduate school, but they don't want to limit themselves to, say, NU, I completely understand that. We're always happy and proud to see our students, after they graduate, go off to different places around the world. I did want to provide some pointers to you, and specifically when you're looking at graduate programs in North America, because I think a lot of students aren't quite aware of some of the particulars of the way that things are done there and what may help increase the chances of them getting an offer or getting in a situation that will be beneficial to them. One thing to note, and I think you probably realize this, but outside of Central Asia, not too many people know about Nazarbayev University. So probably the best way to differentiate yourself or to show to many places in the U.S. and Canada that you have a certain level of knowledge and capability would be doing well on the GRE. You don't have to get stellar GRE scores, but you should do well enough that you can demonstrate to the admissions officers or the people looking at your application package that you're a legitimate student, that you know your stuff. Though there isn't a GRE subject exam in computer science, so you'd probably take just the general exam. Also, I would put a little bit of thought into your statement of purpose. Most graduate programs require something in the application package. It's not always called a statement of purpose. Sometimes it's called like a statement of research or just a personal statement, things like that. I would recommend to be honest in it. Don't just make up stuff or just start name dropping or just start trying to look like something you're not, because most admissions committees can see through that. And they would rather see someone who is has a certain amount of ability to assess themselves and to reflect upon themselves, and not someone who is just kind of trying to inflate themselves and make themselves look better than they actually are. And also, this third point is extremely important because I see a lot of students do this. They say, well, I'm just going to apply to MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, Illinois, Texas, and I don't know. Those are generally considered the sort of the big computer science schools in the U.S. Don't limit yourself to those. Those programs are highly competitive, and it takes a bit of luck, no matter how good you are, to get into those places. And I would actually suggest that you kind of spread out your applications. Pick some big name places that you think you might have a real chance of getting into. Also pick some mid-level places, but also pick some of these smaller universities that maybe not so many people have heard of, but are actually quite strong. And one of the big advantages of actually going to some of these kind of smaller universities or these places that are not so well known is chances are you're going to get a better education there, or the faculty are going to be more willing to help you and more willing to see you succeed. These other big name places, often you might get yourself in a situation where the idea is like, okay, we're only accepting you because there's maybe a 50-50 chance you'll actually produce, and we'll just kick you out if you're not producing after your first year. That they'll kind of leave you on your own and have some survival of the fittest thing going on there with their graduate students. And I generally don't advise that for students. In particular for you, is because you're foreign students and there's a lot more risk involved, financial risk and risk in terms of time spent. If you kind of want some help with this, or usually what I do is I direct students to look at U.S. News and World Report for a listing of schools. They do rankings, but they also do rankings of schools by discipline, but also by discipline and size. So you'll find like the top 10 list of sort of mid-sized or small universities that specialize in this or have a good department in this. Things like that. I generally think that's a fairly good way to kind of assess some of these smaller places. Okay, So, I mean, I've been talking for a bit here, and I don't have anything else to kind of say as part of the talk proper, but I will take questions. I don't know how much time we have left here. And also, I would also say this too, if we don't have time here, or if you don't want to ask sort of a question here with the kind of with the entire crowd here, you can always send me an email. I'm happy to answer questions via email as well. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Professor.
Mhm.
It was a really nice talk, and I heard a lot new for myself, at least. Just a tiny question: how do you think? What is the importance of GPA in the graduate school application?
I would say it's actually quite important. I mean, let me say this. You may have noticed that I mentioned this kind of band that really you should have above a 3.0. I mean, that's a B average. Anything below that usually is an indication that the student may not be serious, or that they're somewhat shaky, and that graduate programs generally will not they'll generally not consider anything below a 3.0. We actually go down to 2.75, and there's actually a historical reason for that, in that we've had students who have like a GPA of say like 2.8 from like a big name school abroad like University of Toronto, that made it very difficult for us to consider them, even though they're really excellent students. There's also some cases, and we've actually had some students from NU who more or less didn't know what the heck they were doing the first 2 years. They were having fun with their friends, playing cards at all hours of the night. And come their third year, they discovered, hey, wait a second, I need to start taking things seriously. And they actually find out that they really love learning, they like being a student, and they want to continue on. So we will also look at that as well. Also note, though, that note that I said that it may not be as important to get a GPA, say, like above, say, a 3.5. I mean, it is helpful, but unless you're looking at, say, like a big name school in, say, like North America, the difference between, say, like a 3.8 and a 4.0, people aren't going to worry so much about that, because one thing with students who have a 4.0, there is often the concern that those students oftentimes will they got the 4.0 by gaming things a little bit, by not taking challenging courses all the time. We're more concerned about preserving this super high GPA. I think graduate programs would prefer to see students who are willing to challenge themselves and take risks, because that's part of learning, and that's part of doing research. So I guess what I'm saying is, getting a 4. There's nothing wrong with getting a 4.0, and that'll open many doors for you. But at the same time, I don't want people to feel discouraged if they have something less than that. And I don't want students to think that getting that 4.0 or a 3.8 is sort of the be all end all. Okay? Are there other?
Professor Tyler, I have a
Yes.
question regarding the research opportunities for undergraduate. Are there any?
Yes. Now, here's what I generally recommend, and I think most of our faculty would say the same, that if you're a first or second year student, you probably shouldn't worry about that yet. Focus in on your classes, do the best you can in your classes. Our classes are designed in our discipline for the first 2 years is really to give you a solid foundation. And unless you are extremely interested and have a lot of background knowledge in a particular area, we find that, say, students in their first 2 years don't have a firm enough foundation. And we'd prefer to work with students who have at least gone through all the introductory programming courses, plus the algorithms course, plus also the The computer systems course is also useful for those people who are going to be doing any software or hardware work, so you have some understanding of how computers actually work internally. Also, it's important that you have the math background that you generally have after your first 2 years. But if you're interested in working on a particular area, go to the faculty page for computer science and just look at what people are working on and see what interests you. And reach out to the faculty. Understand, don't be shy about it, because faculty want students to work with. They want to have people to help collaborate with them on their work. So don't be shy about that. Also, don't feel maybe offended or feel like something isn't right with you if they say no, that I can't work with you right now. Because there's a variety of reasons. Sometimes some faculty members are really just focused on a particular thing, and they already have people working on it, or whatnot. But just feel free to ask. And I think most of our faculty will be very open and willing to spend some time with you just discussing what they're working on, whether or not you end up working with them.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Is it advised to go to get a master's degree only if you want to do research, or like if you want to get a PhD,
No.
or maybe more qualifications to get a job?
Yeah, that's one big thing about getting a master's degree in computer science. There's other disciplines where employers will look at you funny if you went on and got a master's degree, and they'll say, well, why'd you waste 2 years doing that? You already know what you need to know after you get the bachelor's degree. That is often not the case in computer science, because I feel that really, for you to learn kind of deeply in a particular area in computer science, you're probably not going to get that in 4 years, or at least there's generally room to kind of bolster what you know by those additional 2 years. So I will say this: most of our students who get a master's degree in our programs at NU go on and work afterwards. They don't go on to get a PhD. We have a few people who have gone on to pursue one. I'm trying to think of the exact numbers. I can think of, I think, 4 in particular, which is actually quite low considering that our master's program has been running for quite some time. But most of them see it as a way to help kind of bolster their knowledge that they already have, and to help them get better jobs in industry.
One more question regarding admissions to graduate school. Has this admission changed due to pandemic? Maybe you have some
Yep.
prejudices due to, for example, our NU bachelor student choosing SD grading instead of usual traditional grading in their transcript. Like, is it
Well,
that?
okay. I will say this: the fact is that the people looking at your applications for NU students applying to the NU programs, we know who you are. So we know what kind of student you are. For better or worse, we have probably a little more background knowledge than we would on, say, other students. I would say in general, we would prefer to see kind of letter grades on some of these, but frankly, it's probably preferable to see an SD for something as opposed to, say, a C. But if you're going to get an A, or maybe in some cases a B, then maybe you want to keep that letter grade. But don't. I wouldn't worry too much about that unless all of your grades are SDs, because that kind of raises a red flag. It's like, what happened to this student this semester? So don't overuse it. But if we see one or two a semester, we generally are okay with that. In particular, if it's a computer science course, again, we actually know how you did in that course anyway, regardless of if you chose SD or not. So it probably doesn't matter a whole lot.
Thank you.
Okay. If again, I mean, I could take more questions, but if we're running out of time, because I say it's almost 5, but if people have questions, don't hesitate to send me an email, and you can always ask me there. I'm happy to respond.
Yep, we indeed are almost out of time. I should really thank you for participating in our career fair. How do you look at if we share your presentation, like recording of it?
That's fine. Also, I have my slides. I can provide those as well if people want to have a copy of those to look at. So I can
That would be
send those
great.
along. So yeah, that's fine.
All right. So thank you. Now talking about the next talk, it will move to the